Crouch. Bind. Set.
Joe presents The House of Rugby, Season 3.
Hello and welcome to House of Rugby. Normally, as I'm introducing the guys alongside me, I try and think of something funny or smart to say, but not tonight, because we have some people who need a comforting arm around their shoulder, maybe even a virtual hug. Jonathan Davis and Dan Biggar. And Sean O'Brien, I ask this slightly nervously, do you need a comforting arm around your shoulder or a virtual hug?
Is it you that's asking, Lee, or is it for a friend?
Maybe for a friend.
Oh yeah. I never refuse a hug. It's always nice to be nice.
All right. Well, let's just see how you get on in the programme. Let's speak to our Welsh contingent. Foxy, Dan, how have the emotions been over the last few days? Foxy, we'll start with you.
Well, obviously, massively disappointed. Saturday night, I think 10 minutes to the end, I think we've just got enough to secure a Grand Slam, and then the horror show started. And it's been pretty tough since then to just put everything into perspective. Really, what went wrong, where could we have done better, and all that. And you just keep going around in circles, really. So pretty disappointed to say the least. And look, it's we've done that to teams where we won in the last minute, and it's probably one of the first times it's happened to us. So pretty gutted, I gotta say.
Dan, how are you feeling?
Yeah, much the same, Lee. Really, just a range of emotions. Really, just disappointment, frustration, anger, in terms of just how we managed to let it slip. What we were in control of. The penalty try that never was is just something that is beyond me, how it wasn't given. And just really frustrating and really disappointing to have put everything into it and to have come up short. Is like Foxy said, it's been disappointing, but that's kind of how it goes. And I haven't been able to sort of stomach watching the game back yet, to be honest. Certainly not the last sort of 15 minutes or so. And it'll be a tough one to get over, I think.
Maybe it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but would you rather be on the field in those last 10 minutes than having to sit on the sidelines and watch for both of you? Yeah,
100%, especially when I had to sit next to Biggs. There was chairs flying, everything, water bottles going everywhere.
We were saying, folks, when we were in the changing room, we should have done the podcast straight after the game. You'd have had good entertainment. You'd have had good viewing figures, I think, on tomorrow morning if we'd done that.
It would have had to be a post-watershed show, I think. But no, obviously you want to be on the field at the end, and you feel that you might have a bit more control of it all. But just sat there watching it, and it's just
Boys, but in fairness, just to cheer you up a bit, Ireland beat England. It's not all doom and gloom on House and Rugby this week. We have someone with a smile on their face.
And, someone's happy in the corner.
Yeah, and in fairness, Lee, Scotland got over Italy. Got past the Italians. They got past the Italians.
Everyone's Scottish this week. I think that's what we're going to be building up to in this conversation. But Sean, from that point of view, the boys touched upon it. They were sitting on the bench 10 minutes from the end, and we understand the world of your finishers or whatever you want to call them. But when you bring off your experienced players, your Dans, your Foxys, your Thomas Francis, your Ken Owens, are you asking for trouble, or do you have to believe in the depth of everyone?
Yeah, you have to kind of. It's a two-sided coin, isn't it? Because while you believe in the lads you have in your squad and you back them to the hilt as well to go on and finish the job, you're bringing off a lot of lads who have been in that situation before, in those tight games. And I've said this to Foxy already, but I thought the control of the last 10 minutes was really poor by Wales in terms of, like, there should have been a dead call at the ruck. Like, France are going to throw everything at you. They're going to play. They're going to go this wide game. So, like, stop competing at the breakdown and go and get them with your defence, which Wales have been brilliant at. So just a few smart things, I thought, just slipped away from them a little bit and gave France the sniff that they needed to get their tails up and get a bit of offloading into their game and you know, they're so dangerous when they get into that unstructured stuff. So I just thought the control could have been a little bit better from the boys in the field in the last few minutes, and I'm sure it's going to be tough for you, and you know, when they look back on that, if they ever look back on it.
I think Sean, what was more frustrating for us being on the bench was that it just seemed to be we seemed to be compounding errors, didn't we, John?
Yeah,
well, that's what it felt like, didn't it? And we just felt like you said, Sean, maybe there was a lack of. It just felt a bit manic, and it kind of just fell into France's hands. And we wanted, probably in that last 10 minutes, we wanted the game as structured and as slow as possible. Whereas through whatever mistakes there were and up the field, it just seemed to play into France's hand and speed the game up, and it was just absolute carnage what unfolded in the last 10 minutes. So,
from what you said, Dan, do you think that damage was done? Obviously, it was done in the last 10 minutes, but you referred to the sort of penalty try that never was and things like that. So there were other extraneous factors too.
Yeah, I don't want to come on and sort of, you know, come across as like sore losers or anything, because we have to. Mistakes happen in a game. Everyone makes mistakes, but I think it was difficult not to have seen how that was a penalty try. And but you know, like we've just mentioned, now we seem to just think that the game was probably done, and we just seem to fall off the rails a little bit by making error after error and allowing France into it. But yeah, you know, and unfortunately for us, it wasn't given, and that's something that we should have dealt with things a lot better than we did.
We had a 14-point lead, I think, and it just, like Biggs has said, errors cost us. We piggybacked them down the field, and we gave them easy ins. They didn't really have to work for it, and you know that's on us really. And you know, it's one of those. We you know, if we do look back, we will be so frustrated, and it'll be a tough watch. But hopefully, you know, what we have to do is learn from it and make sure that we don't let those results slip again.
We saw those pictures of you, Foxy, sitting on the pitch on the phone, just sort of desolate. You know, who did it hit the hardest, do you think? I mean, like, you look just broken afterwards, understandably so. But I imagine, you know, obviously you're not going to be the only one. Was it a tough one collectively for everyone?
Yeah, I think everyone. I think, you know, 14 out of 15 of the starting team all had a Grand Slam. And, you know, it was probably the first time we've ever lost a situation like that in all my time with Wales. Whenever we've been in, you know, been able to control our destiny, we've always delivered. And I think that was the shock. Like, we didn't deliver at the end there. And for me, like, I just wanted to get out of the change rooms, because it was pretty dire in there. The boys were just quiet, and you know, I just wanted to get out and, you know, just get out and, you know, take my mind off things as best I could. And you know, it was, I don't know what was going on really. It was
Foxy, the boys reckon you were on the phone to your bank manager. The Grand Slam bonus had gone. He was heartbroken for you.
Yeah, he was saying I got to play for another 3 years now.
So Sean touched upon it. What does this Friday night look like for you guys? Because France plays Scotland in this rearranged fixture. Do you all go off and, you know, you've all got either matches if you're playing in England, or you're not playing if you're in Wales? What does it look like? You all just sit and wait for your fate to be decided individually?
Yeah, I think the chat is that obviously boys who play in England will have their club commitments, and I think there was talk of us coming together as a squad and watching the game, but I think you know, we didn't really want to do that. You know, just in case France do get the result, we've come together to watch a game, and then we all have to disperse even more disappointed. So I think we're going to watch a game at home with our families, and you know, and if the result does go well, you know, for everyone who's been away from their families for 8 weeks, it'd be a nice moment to have with them, because obviously the sacrifices they've done over the campaign in protecting us to be able to stay safe from COVID or whatever. So yeah, and then whatever happens after that, I think they'll try and get a trophy left somewhere, or a virtual one. I don't know. But it's very surreal.
It won't be the same though as last weekend.
Oh no,
That's like I that's why I'd be saying, like, it's never the same. It's that rotten feeling won't leave you till you get another slap at it, because Grand Slams don't come around that often, as we all know.
No.
And it's there in your hand. You've one hand on the trophy basically, and the whole lot. And I'd say now the way I'd feel about that is I wouldn't mind what happened this weekend. It was all about last weekend.
I think that's why the frustration from our point of view, Sean, is that we know that they don't come around. Like I said, your career was unbelievable, but you don't get a chance to win them very often at all, do you? And for us to have just come up short, like you said, one hand on the trophy, I think, it's going to be very, very difficult to get as close as that again and not win it. So I think that's where the real frustration comes in.
So a Six Nations win obviously isn't good as a Grand Slam win, but you'd happily take a Six Nations win, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take a medal, obviously.
And as well as from where you are in November, for instance, like your worlds apart, like you're in a different place altogether. So and if you keep developing like that, like you will get other opportunities again. But it's a fact. I think Lee, what happens is when you put so much into something and you get to the place where you've planned to get to, and you basically fuck it up in the last 10 minutes. That's the hurting part of it, and that's where it doesn't go away from us because we're competitors, and that's what we do. So it's a tough one for the boys to swallow, but they will, and they're going the right direction, which is I suppose when you look at the positives of it, you're like Ireland. Well, you're in a better place than Ireland, but Ireland are going the right direction now. From what we've seen at the weekend, and that's the likes of Johnny and all these boys were saying this, that we were going to see this performance, and in fairness, they believed it, and we seen it at the weekend. Then the type of rugby they want to try and start playing, which is exciting, and Wales are the same. Like, it's exciting. And France, in fairness to them, I kind of tipped them from the start of the tournament. They're going to be dangerous when they get a little bit more structure around some of their decisions at times.
I think we'd have rather just got thumped, Foxy, wouldn't we? Almost. We'd have almost sort of gone out there and just got absolutely dusted up and come back between our tail, between our legs. But that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Sport's cruel sometimes.
Yeah. And it's the moment you want is like after experiencing, lifting the trophy with the boys. Those are the memories you remember, not the games. And not to have that, I think, was the real hammer blow to us all, because when you look back in your career, those would be the days you do remember.
Imagine the changing room after you did do it last weekend. It would have been serious crack. I was actually thinking today, Biggs, of the day we had in the vineyard in New Zealand.
Yeah, we had a good day there, didn't we?
With yourself and Johnny being best friends, and John Spencer, our team manager, was at the end of the table but no top on.
Yeah, I think he had my T-shirt. I think he had my T-shirt, mine. I had his Lions shirt, and I think he had my casual T-shirt. So we did a swap for the day. But yeah, like you said, those are the moments you live for, aren't they? And it was so disappointing not to be able to have another one on Saturday night.
Sean, what does it say about the Six Nations? Do you think that we're heading into a France-Scotland match, and because of the rules, that Scotland, because France broke COVID protocols, Scotland are actually a side which are being penalised when it comes down to the players that they can pick. So last week, Gregor Townsend had 11 English-based players in his squad. This week, he's only allowed 5. And it's not just a match which determines where Scotland finish in the competition, but there's a big outcome for Wales as well.
Yeah, it's not right, to be honest. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is, unfortunately, and that's the hand they've been dealt. And yeah, like France breaking the rules first and foremost is the wrong part of it, and then they're kind of getting one up now this weekend again on potentially Wales, but obviously Scotland as well being weaker with certain players missing. So something needs to be looked at that in case it ever happened again, but it's definitely not right, in my opinion. And it'll be it'll be tough. If I think Scotland will give a real good account of themselves, and I don't really believe that France will beat them by what they need to beat them by anyway. Because Scotland have their tails up a little bit as well and have a bit of a point to prove, and I'm sure they'll be well fired up this weekend. But if France did get the result they needed, on the basis of the few decisions that have went their way, they can count themselves very lucky.
Yeah, completely agree with that. It's the tournament ends on a Super Saturday, and it should have ended on Saturday, and for them to get more time as a squad and then have play a weakened team on the weekend, it doesn't seem fair. But like Shawnee said, that's the cards that have been dealt, and we all tune in on Friday with our tartan on, looking forward to hopefully a Scottish victory.
It's a little bit, John. Like, do you remember 2015 when we played first in against Italy? We put a big score up, and then sort of it's kind of like whoever plays last as well kind of has that advantage as well, don't they, in terms of knowing exactly what they got to do. And just for this weekend, it just seems like everyone else has managed to get all COVID tests back negative, and France have broke the rules but seem to be gaining all the advantage from that last weekend and knowing exactly what they need to do. So disappointing from our end on that. Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past the French to have actually planned this, because they're that crazy.
Bring on the lawsuits.
Bernard Laporte, we did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So you can park your waffles and have a week of haggis and Braveheart, and everyone's Scottish this week. That's what we're saying.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, completely.
On the Scottish.
Dan, thanks very much for the moment. You'll be joining us again a little bit later in the programme. But first, let's turn our attentions to England. Sean, were England as bad as the Six Nations table would suggest?
I think they have gone back, definitely. But I also think other teams have figured out how to beat them. And that, when you look at it, I think that's kind of an Eddie Jones thing as well, a little bit. This kind of happens when he's in a place for a period of time. So he gets them very revved up, obviously gets them playing some good rugby, but then there's a bit of a decline. And I just think, when you look at the Ireland game at the weekend, Ireland went away from the way they played against them the last couple of times, which was trying to physically match them, etc. They just kept moving the point of contact at the weekend, and England didn't have answers to it. And the other thing was and without England's defence having answers and smashing people behind the gain line, their game plan doesn't work. So, I think teams know that now. Obviously, Scotland got into them. The very first game, the Welsh game again was massive, and I just think they're not where they were at the World Cup, and teams are starting to figure them out a little bit. So they either need to change what they're doing and have a real good hard look at themselves and say, right, we need to change our plan now again and go again, or get in some different ideas through different coaches, etc. Because it's when a coach is there for 4 or 5 years, it's very hard to keep doing the same thing. And we kind of seen it with Joe, to be honest, in Ireland. People figured out our game plan, and we went backwards for a year. So I think I can see that a little bit with England at the minute.
I think the point you make about the other teams catching up is a good one. I think, if you look back to that World Cup, that performance against New Zealand was probably the best performance of the whole year from a team. But looking now, people have dissected how they play. Obviously, it's a heavy kick game, and if you stay in that battle with them and take away the momentum, which is their defense, like Shawnee said, and get them on the back foot, and then they don't seem to enjoy chasing games. They like to build a lead and just then suffocate you. So when we played them in the Six Nations, it was all about not folding that kicking battle and making sure that we started fast and put pressure on them quickly, because I don't think they like chasing games. That was from perspective from us going into our game, it was that was our game plan, really.
Yeah. And I think the other thing with England at the minute is their best players aren't playing for England. Like, you go back to the whole Simmons thing again. Like, Billy didn't really play well in a few of these games. So that has to be refreshed. Did they pick the right combinations in on different days? They're all things you can look at, but I still believe there's certain players in the Premiership that are playing better rugby than the guys playing in that Six Nations Championship. So why aren't they given the shot? Why aren't questions being asked of why isn't Simmons, for instance, playing 8 or playing 6 one of the days and give him a shot? Like, because he's ripping it up week in, week out. So that's probably something Eddie has to look at as well.
But that's the thing, isn't it? If you're talking more about omissions than selections, then that's not a good thing. So who then speaks to the coach about that? Because it seems like the more noise you make, the less that Eddie wants to actually pick these players sometimes, and that is not a good position to be in. So who then is he responsible to?
Well, I suppose, like, I don't know how it works here, really, to be honest with you. I don't know where Eddie rings or rings, let's say, Exeter and talks to Rob Baxter. Where I knew in Ireland, if when I was playing there, that Joe would ring the provincial coaches and say, right, who's going well? Like, I remember some of the younger guys coming through it, like when they were still like kind of third year, maybe starting to play a few games for the Leinster first team, but had potential to play international level. They would be in training in camp, and I presume it's the same in Wales and everywhere else. But so that line of communication was there. So I wonder, is that the same here, or is it just that Eddie goes, right, this is my squad, I'm just watching the games. He's not actually talking to coaches about what they're doing well, how they can add value to the environment. There's so many things I suppose a coach is looking at. But if you have someone who is on fire literally week in, week out, how can you still ignore him? I genuinely, if I was him, I'd be picking up the phone and ringing Eddie myself and saying, I want to play for England. What do I need to do for you? Like, what do I need to add to my game here to actually give me a shout? Like, so I say it's highly frustrated for the two boys. So I just don't think they're picking the right team at the minute.
And Foxy, a lot of the big names are being questioned, but maybe now we shouldn't be surprised that if, for example, your Saracens guys aren't playing top-level rugby week in, week out, why should they be match ready for international test-level rugby?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think everyone needs regular rugby, and it's it might have showed those boys not having a game from the Autumn Nations Cup to the Six Nations that they hadn't had that match prep. And I think if you look at the team now, the experience they have, they're under a lot of criticism, but Wales as a team were under heavy criticism back in the autumn for the performances we were given, the results we were getting. But I think we used the Autumn Nations Cup as a build-in block to give exposure to youngsters, try different combinations, and we used those foundations to then as a launch pad. So when we came into the Six Nations, that we knew, right, we have to get better, but we know we've put in a lot of good work in the autumn to reap the reward. And I think we gained momentum from that. Like I said, the work we did in the autumn. So yeah, it's a difficult one. And like, boys obviously want to be playing week in, week out, and they're in a tough situation with their clubs at the moment, with their club not being in the Premiership, and you don't know what the answer is really. But it's a tough one to dissect really, because it's the boys who were playing, we only truthfully to be able to tell you that whether they were ready or not to play.
Yeah, but I think that goes back. The first game maybe, okay. The first game maybe you mightn't be completely match fit, but the conditioning programs S&Cs have in these international setups now are phenomenal, and they have you ready. They have you ready to play really, like. But there is an element of match fitness, obviously. But after a game or 60 minutes of a test game, like, you're ready to rock the following weekend. So I don't think while I do think it might have had a factor in the first game, I don't think it had a factor in the way they tried to evolve the game or the way they tried to think differently about it. Because you look at what they did. Well, I look at what they did to Ireland over the last few years. They bullied them physically. They won the aerial battle. They won that kicking battle that Foxy's talking about. That's really it. And the set piece, they dominated at certain times, but it was mainly with their D and the aerial battle that they went after Ireland with over the past couple of years. And then Ireland said, you know what, we're going to hold on to the ball now, and we're just going to play away from them all the time and change the point of contact. And it looked so simple at the weekend, but the boys actually executed it really well. But other teams are obviously know that now. You listen to Foxy there saying about, make sure you don't get bored of the kicking battle, and make sure you go at them early on and make them chase the game rather than you chasing it. So if that's all they have in their armoury at the minute, then need to evolve. With the players they have, England should be playing a fast running game of rugby. You look at some of their back three, like they're absolutely ridiculously fast, skillful, but yet they're just driving balls up in the air and saying, right, we're going to chase this and see can you catch it. So they can evolve their game, obviously, and they probably will now after assessing themselves after this Six Nations. But I think they're miles away from where they were in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think the way they play, when they play with speed, and I think they showed glimpses of it in the Six Nations. There was periods where, you think, Jesus Christ, they were relentless here. It just kept coming and coming, and then they just seemed to, not fade away, but just, went away from that game. I think they just need to find that balance of like really giving the boys opportunities to show what they can do with ball in hand.
Yeah, interesting that heading into the Six Nations, it was Wayne Pivac and Andy Farrell who were under scrutiny. Sean, if we just talk about Ireland and the campaign that they've had, where do you think they are in comparison to maybe, 6 months ago?
They're in a better place now. Ireland are in a better place, but they're still developing and getting out of the habits that they had for years now. Years of being coached by a certain coach. And now we're trying to play a lot more and play a more expansive game, and it's a different environment. Coaches want different things, and like I've said this loads of times, it takes time for you to get all that out of your system and to get moving well. And I thought they'd done it really, really well at the weekend. But again, there's more to come from this team. I can assure you that. But I love the way they didn't like run into brick walls at the weekend. When they had to muscle up, they muscled up, and their ruck ball was the fastest in the championship. At the weekend I thought was brilliant. But like their little tip-ons inside and out, moving the point of contact, they were just good, and they were smart. I thought Johnny and Connor at the weekend were absolutely phenomenal, and Johnny controlled the game really, really smartly. So I think they're building again, and I think they'll take a lot of confidence from what they've done against England, because that was a game that they really needed to win, especially after, I suppose, the last few outings against them. It took the wind out of their sails a little bit, and they were like, how are we going to beat these boys? Well, now they have how to beat them. And I think going forward, you'll see an Ireland side that will express themselves a lot more and be a lot more confident now. So I think the weekend is very important for the whole setup going forward, and it was brilliant to watch, and I really enjoyed the game, to be honest.
And already, can you see the stamp of Paul O'Connell in the way that the forwards are playing?
Yeah, 100%, because I think the forwards just didn't get enough purchase out of their maul and I suppose the quality of ball they were getting over the last 18 months, really. And Paulie's come in, and you can just see the standard has risen, and that's just him all over. He doesn't accept mediocrity or anything like that. And if you don't do your job properly, you won't be in the team. You won't be in his forward pack. So it's, it was, you can see how he's influenced the group already as well. And people will react to Paulie because he has that emotional kind of drive in him as well. And I presume some conversations he'll be having with certain lads during the week will be very motivating. As I think the whole coaching group that Ireland have now is a motivating coaching group. But I just think with some of the lads that are still there in that environment, there's very little motivation needed. They want to win things, and they want to get better. And thankfully, they've done that now. And I really like the way Johnny spoke throughout the tournament about, getting better. He really believed that, and he trusted that. And I'm glad it came to fruition last weekend. And
Foxy, I think it's a really nice thing to see that, just talking of Johnny Sexton there, that he's, the past couple of matches, Scotland and then the one against England, he's playing out of his skin just now. And it seems to be that when you hit a certain age, there are doubters and people always questioning things. And yet he has come back, and the past couple of matches, at the very least, he's started to silence any of the critics that he may have had.
I think that's just his competitive nature. I think whenever a professional athlete gets questioned whether they're over the hill or not, it drives you to prove those people wrong. And I doubt Johnny's listened to what these critics are saying, but he knows the standards he sets. Whenever you used to go into training, you knew you had to know your role because Johnny would know his. And if you don't deliver that, you're not doing your job properly. And I think, Johnny is, pretty stern general on the training field, and he'll make sure that he's pretty harsh on himself as well. So he'll drive himself to be better, and it's great to see him playing so well now. Well,
we have the small matter of a Lions tour coming up a little bit later. Well, I say a little bit later. We're talking a matter of months, weeks now. And Sean, how surprised were you today with the news that the tour, after all the rumblings that it was going to be here in the UK, has been confirmed that it's going to happen in South Africa?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised, to be honest, because from what I was hearing and bits of text messages you were getting, etc., you were like, right, this is going ahead over here now. But anyone that's going to go on that Lions tour will be loving that it's in South Africa, and hopefully with fans, because I did say months ago on this, I said it's going to be a nightmare for the players if it's over here, and even if there was crowds out, but like having a tour, not leaving kind of on a plane, traveling at least 6 or 7 hours, doesn't really feel like a tour inside. So I'm glad it's gone ahead in South Africa. I'm delighted the whole thing is set in stone now, or whatever way it will be running forward, and it'll be brilliant for South African rugby. Obviously, the money side of it, and the people. Hopefully, if we are allowed, spectators, etc., and it'll be good for the players. I think the players will enjoy the fact now that it's actually a proper tour, and they can go out there and enjoy it for what a Lions tour is all about. So surprising news, but great at the same time. And myself and Foxy will be sitting in seat 1A and B, hopefully, on come the summer.
Yeah, you'll be delighted.
With the Gullivers.
Yeah. I'm going as a masseur.
I'm baggage master, yeah.
At the very worst case, and I don't think this will happen, but we could take the COVID calf on tour.
Could do that, yeah. Sean, are you any good on the old latte art, or?
I'll put the coffee in the twisty thing for you.
I would suggest that's a no then. If it's the twisty thing, it's probably a no. But Foxy, great news, isn't it? Nobody wants to go on a tour on a bus.
No, exactly. And I think it's the whole excitement of, getting on a plane, going to a foreign country and, experiencing the culture of that country. I remember New Zealand with the Maori welcomes and stuff, and they were pretty special, and for whoever goes on that tour to experience a bit of the South African culture, it'll make it far better than being cooped up in a hotel in the UK. And hopefully the boys, like Shoni said, get to experience the true nature of a Lions tour and the best part of it, really. So
let's bring Dan back in. Dan, we've just been talking about the fact that the Lions have announced that the tour to South Africa is on. Every time I speak to a player just now, I feel that I have to ask them about the Lions, and every player gives me the same answer, in that they're not thinking about the Lions. Is that what you're going to tell me if I ask you about Lions?
It was certainly the furthest thing from my mind on Saturday night, that's for sure. But I think it's really difficult to honestly say that you're not thinking about it in a Lions year, because everyone is. And the way that I've answered the question previously is that you're in absolutely no control really of getting selected, because it doesn't matter if your form is brilliant, not so good. You've seen it throughout all the years that we've been playing it, that players have been picked out of form, players have been left out when they've been in brilliant form. And you've only got to look at, for the best example I can use to answer this question is, you look at the Simmons boys in Exeter. Mm-hmm. Now, their form couldn't have been any better for the last 12, 18 months. And for whatever reason, Eddie Jones just doesn't fancy them. And absolutely no issues from his end. But you kind of think, well, that's why I've sort of said to myself, all I want to do is put myself in consideration. If my name's chucked about there or in a meeting or selection meeting, then that's all I can do, because you can't control what somebody else is going to do. I'm not picking the team, or sort of my parents aren't picking the team or whatever. So it's really difficult to go about that. But I think everyone would be really it would be difficult to tell the truth if they weren't thinking about it in the back of their minds. Absolutely.
Sean, you touched upon a little story earlier on in the programme. What is Dan like as a tourist?
Oh, he was very good as a tourist, to be fair. It was funny because himself and Johnny Sexton were like, obviously would have had a rattle at each other lots of times on the pitch and gave each other a few verbals and stuff, but they're actually the best of friends when we got on the pitch, which was hilarious. You had these two grumpy fucks roaring and shouting at you at training and giving you these devil eyes and telling you, basically looking at you saying, don't do that again, that's shit. And then when you get them outside off the pitch, you've great crack with them. And so the two boys were like two peas in a pod going around, kind of bossing us around the place. But
I was just looking at tips off him how to call people shit and really reinforce that point, sort of thing. So
he's very good at it, in fairness. He has it down to a T now at this stage. He's been doing it for 14 years.
A couple of weeks we had George North on, and Foxy gave an appraisal of George whilst George was sitting there. So we'll get you to do the same with Dan. No blushes spared.
Oh, what a full appraisal! Here we go.
Full appraisal.
This should be.
I should have had a bit of time with. To be fair, Biggs he's been the leader of the backs for a number of years now, and like the maturity he has from a young age. I remember when we played 20s together, and he's a couple of years younger than me, and Sean, you saying, he was calling boys shit back then, so he was full of confidence. And he steers the ship, and he's definitely one of the reasons why Wales have been successful over the last however many years he's been there. 2013 we won the championship, and Biggs was a big part to play, and all the success in World Cups as well. So I've loved playing with Biggsy, although sometimes we get into each other a fair bit. But
we have the occasional crossword, John, don't we? I think it's best to say.
Yeah. And then
every good relationship, lads, has a few good arguments. It's all about how you make up, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's he's been like I said, big part of Wales' success over the last few years. So
Dan, if Foxy was in charge of fines in camp and very busy running his COVID calf with George, what is your extracurricular activities in camp? What are you responsible for, apart from just turning up and playing very well?
This is gonna. We were laughing when we were in the COVID calf the other day, which is actually that was sort of the highlight of our week, really. But what's between me and John, we've got like 80, 90 caps, whatever each. George has got 100 caps. And in COVID, in camp, George is like the coffee maker for everyone. Foxy is delivering the cakes and croissants and everything like that. By hand to everyone, and I'm in charge of the laundry committee, so I'm in charge of making sure all the washing gets done. So between us, we've got about nearly 300 caps, and we're basically the team skivvies. So that's where we are, John. We're hanging on for dear life, aren't we?
Well, yeah, we actually we get changed in coffin corner, which is basically a part of the marquee we get ready before training. And initially, when I first started playing, the likes of Adam Jones, Gethin Jenkins, and all the senior boys would get changed, and that's where your career would end. Once you start getting changed in coffin corner, you're done. And me and Biggs have been hanging on for a few years now.
We've managed to stick it out for a few years, John, as well, haven't we? We were a bit worried when you get towards like the 90 caps in Wales, you normally getting sacked off, but we're digging in. We're digging in a fair bit. Fair play.
Yeah.
I don't want to put the COVID calf down. But did you see that Anthony Watson put up a picture today saying that Nando's brought a full restaurant into the England camp?
They're on a different budget to us, mind.
Yeah, different budget there.
But my wife
done in the world a good, mind you, didn't it? Yeah, there were all that chicken.
Too much spice.
Too much spice. Yeah, too much spice. Too many of those peri fries.
This is the different budgets we're working in. My wife does like a little bit of baking home, like with a baking at home. So she had to supply some cakes for us, and John goes to a bakery as well. So we're basically doing that ourselves, and England are having the full Nando's brought in and full waiters and everything like that. So different budgets.
Well, as Sean said, it didn't work. So, Dan, what is sort of on your radar? I mean, I was lucky enough to do a programme with you in Champions Cup. I think that was October. I've got to say at that stage, if you wanted to ever go into the media, you could do. You were by far the best prepared person I have had turn up on any of the programmes. Sorry, Foxy. Sorry, Sean. But this was a racing Saris match that we were covering, wasn't it? And you'd been in touch with Johnny Sexton because Leinster had gone out to them the week before. You had done basically all the work that everyone else should have done.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my the way I've sort of tried to operate in life. Really, is that if I'm gonna do something, I'd rather do it to the best of my abilities, or to the best of, and be as best as I can, really, because I haven't really got a huge amount of time for people who've got perhaps talent or whatever it is, but aren't prepared to put the work in. And I think that's a big reason maybe why I've had the length of career that I've had, because technically I'd probably be below a lot of people in my position, but the one thing I feel like I've got is that real work ethic and desire to whether it's sort of touch rugby games when we're warming up in training, whether it's, like I said, doing some media work or whatever. I want to try and be as well prepared, or as well, or come across as well, or be the best in whatever I can. And that's not always possible, but I think if you give yourself a chance by doing the prep and things like that, then I think you'll come across a fair bit better than if you're sort of off the cuff, really.
He's a rugby nose, he is. He's a rugby nose. He loves watching rugby. He'll watch Bedwar seconds play Pontypool seconds. He knows the teams, everything. He loves going to any rugby game. So it doesn't surprise me when he's that well prepared.
So apart from playing rugby, what do you see yourself doing? After your career stops, whenever that may be.
That's a very good question, and I'm running out of time to answer it really in the next few years. But I'd love to do. I wouldn't want to. I got to be honest. I could not think of anything worse than going into full-time coaching. In terms of, I look at the coaches in Northampton. I'm sure it's the same in London Irish and the Scarlets and up and down the country, that they are just absolutely relentless in terms of every single day, every evening, every weekend. And I just think when I finish, I just want to be able to enjoy my weekends, or choose what I want to do on my weekends. So I'd love to do little bits of media work, and I'd love to do bits and pieces which aren't one thing, if that makes sense. So I've got a couple of different avenues to go down and bits, and also spend some time. I've got a 3-year-old little boy, and he's sort of him and my wife. I want to be able to give some time back to them as well. So I want to be able to potter around in a bit of media work, a bit of sort of maybe kicking coaching. I'm trying to get Neil Jenkins to hang on for a couple more years, and we can do a trade then in 2 or 3 years' time. But just that. But I feel like I owe a little bit, sort of like, and I thought it was really nice what CJ Stander said about his family in terms of what they've given up for him over the years, and they sort of, they deserve him back a little bit now. So I think when I finish, I want to try and give back to them as much as I can as well, for the amount of we're away, as much obviously all year.
Well, I'm sure you've still got a good few rugby years in you just yet. But thanks so much for coming on the programme. It has been great to have you along with the other boys. I'm sorry we're not really talking about a much cheerier subject than we were at the start, but we'll get you back on when you have a trophy and when you have your next Grand Slam.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee. Cheers, lads.
Yeah, great to have Dan on the programme. Now he's not here, Foxy. Is there anything you want to add that you couldn't say in front of him?
Oh, I'm just glad I got a word in there at some point. On the field, it's hard to get anything in with him. But no, to be fair, he was top bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. It was disappointment, as we've touched upon, for Wales in Six Nations, but for the first time in a long time, I think, in the Pro 14, every Welsh side won this weekend. But it is, of course, Sean, the Pro 14 final coming up this weekend, Leinster, Munster. I think we're used to seeing that now. Who have you got for this one?
Oh, I just think Leinster. Yeah, I think Leinster will be too strong for them again. But Munster have played a lot better in I suppose this season. They've played a lot more with the ball in their hands. They look dangerous. They have some really good young guys coming through. But I still think Leinster will be too strong for them with who they've come back now from Ireland camp. The way they've been playing lately. I know they got bet late on against the Ospreys. But you know, when you look at their squad and who they have available, it's phenomenal, really. It's frightening to see some of the names there. So it'll be a cracker of a game, and it won't be all one-sided, obviously. But Leinster to come out on top for sure. I think I can't see Munster beating them in anytime soon. Anyway, with the way Leinster have the setup and the way they're playing.
And just before we go, Foxy, it's the sort of time of the season where we get a bit of musical chairs going on. We've got news that Freddie Burns is going to Leicester. We expect Danny Cipriani to be heading to Bath. It's a big call for Bath, but it's basically because one of your own is probably heading back over to Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think obviously good mate of mine, Rhys Priestley's going back to, well, not back to go and join the Cardiff team. So yeah, I think it's big shoes to fill. Like, obviously he's had that record for the Prem for the most consecutive kicks, and Rhys has been excellent for them over 5 or 6 years. I think he's been there. So yeah, no, tough ask for him, Cipriani, to go there and really add to what Rhys has done. So best of luck to the boys coming back, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Gents, thank you very much. Foxy, thanks for your honesty and for joining us tonight. I'm sure it's probably the last thing you wanted to do, but it has been a pleasure. Thanks to everyone at home for watching, for listening, and we will see you all next week.
You've been watching The House of Rugby Season 3 on Joe.